Please welcome the Prime Minister of the Republic of Trinidad and Tobago, Dr. Keith Rowley.
Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, fellow citizens all, thank you very much for accepting our invitation to come here this evening to begin the celebration of an event that has been so historic that it started very many centuries ago, and it's still either going on or affecting us. I want to begin by thanking my staff for once again organizing this event to allow us to come here and to reflect, to be reminded, to enjoy, and to look to the days ahead. Ladies and gentlemen, this Emancipation celebration that we started in Trinidad and Tobago very many years ago, which continues to be a significant item on our national annual calendar, should be an event on our personal calendar as well. It is so far-reaching that if I look backwards a little bit in our history, or in the history of the events that have us here this evening, we can see the peak of it in the 19th century, in the 18th century actually, when slavery and the slave trade, what we now commonly call human trafficking, was at its peak. The worst of man's inhumanity to man side by side with the wealth and economics that made some people so wealthy, so happy, so powerful, so invincible, that the 17th, 18th century was deemed to be the era when the world changed. Changed for the better for some people and changed for the worse for others. That's a long, long time ago. But it didn't end there. If we go back to the 1807 date, end of the trafficking of people, the slave trade itself, it didn't end slavery. Takes us to the 1838, when there was supposed to be emancipation, when legally a people were made free from the lash, from rape, from being chattels of other people, and takes us to recently, to the War of American Independence, Civil War in America, and right here to some memory that we carry today to our own independence in these islands that have a connection to all those dates centuries ago. But most importantly, ladies and gentlemen, things seem to go in circles, because it began with blood, a loss of value of life, and today we are well into the 21st century. And if one might be a little cynical, you might want to think that we are recreating an environment that we've known before, particularly for African people. Ladies and gentlemen, the color of our skin is never going to change. But that significant piece of biology has established itself as a marker for us. Racism is alive and well in the 21st century. And slavery, which we now commonly call human trafficking, is an item that's attracting our attention not only in Trinidad and Tobago, but around the world in the 21st century. Some of us who, towards the middle and end of the 19th and 20th century, we would have probably begun to think that that history was behind us and can be left behind as we move into a period where it might only be a memory for the pure historians. But we are beginning to remind ourselves today, and there are others who are reminding us in more ways than one, that we could never leave that period of our history behind. Here in Trinidad and Tobago, as in our nation, today, we need to confront a reality that we cannot run away from. And that reality is, in a diverse society aiming to do well, that African people are not doing as well as we expected or as well as we might. Fact. I distinctly recall, I think it was in 2003 or 2004 thereabouts, there was a big event in our parliament because there was a project that was started, was a pilot project to focus on trying to prevent the young of the African population in the urban areas from going astray and going so far astray that their behavior could threaten the nation. That project required that the government of Trinidad and Tobago focus on the problems of the urban youth in Trinidad and Tobago, which were largely of African families. Some people in our society saw that project as discrimination and favoring some to the disadvantage of others. And even parliamentarians who should have known better, but who thought that this will pass us by, objected. And as I stood up for that project, I was accused of racism because the project was focusing on the problem, and the problem was that Trinidad and Tobago African problem. It wasn't happening in the Chinese community or the Indian community or the Arab community. It was a problem in the African community where the African youth, by the tens of thousands, were going astray and choosing violence and criminality as a way of life. And what is worse, that was coming right out of the breakdown of the families of the African population. And rather than see the threat that that posed to this country and focus on it, it was shelved, it was cried down, and today, nobody in this country could point to that location as a place where we shouldn't have been, which is to have focused on trying to head off what we are experiencing now. It seems as if the loss of the family structure back in the 17th century, the 18th century, the loss of that ability to compete effectively and also to hold on to cultural strengths such as religion and other things that keep other people together, the loss of that, that is now causing us to believe that in Trinidad and Tobago, some people are saying, is this a real place? Yes, it is a real place. And we have real problems. And it requires real solutions and real leadership. And the time has come where this Emancipation Day ought not just to be a day for frivolity and wearing nice African clothes and walking in the street. The time has come for the Afro-Trinidadian population to use Emancipation Day, to focus and reflect and have serious conversations about where we are in a nation where we are underperforming. Sounds bad. These are the facts. Look at the level of violence which is commonplace in Trinidad and Tobago today. Who is affected? Who is carrying it out? Who is defending it? Who is being ignored? Ladies and gentlemen, this country has a lot of problems, like many other countries. But let us not for 1 minute believe that this is not a problem for all the people of Trinidad and Tobago. And I want to call out to you to say, let us use Emancipation, the call to acknowledge Emancipation Day, to acknowledge our history, our past, our ancestry. Let us add to that a requirement for those of us who today are alive here and who have responsibilities, whether it's in the home, in the church, in the school, on the street, to accept that responsibility in the context that we are not yet fully emancipated. It is fashionable, I might think, to reflect on those who did wrong to us, those who hurt, those who cheated, those who killed of the past. What about the present? What about those of us who now can influence today's situation? We can't hide and ask for reparation from those who would not listen to us and those who've gone before us, while at the same time refusing to do what has to be done now in our time, in our place, in our space. So ladies and gentlemen, I say this not to condemn anyone or anything, but to ask for a deep reflection and a commitment that even as we can never forget the beginning of what caused emancipation to be required, even as we can't forget it, let us not contribute to our own situation by not doing the best we can in nation building, in family building, in community building in Trinidad and Tobago. So as I welcome you here on behalf of my family and my staff, I ask you, let 2019 be that year when we take a commitment, make a commitment that Trinidad and Tobago, its African population, will focus on being the best that we can be in a nation that we can all be proud of. Because Trinidad and Tobago is easily the most attractive, the most beautiful, the nation with the most potential of all the world's people.
Put our hands on the fire.